All right, next question. So this is another question I got, and this is really valid because a lot of students are going to their senior year of high school right now, and they're really starting to prepare for their next steps. And for those that are going to college, one of the questions I got was, do students really need to take ACT or SAT tests? Because my student told me that they don't need it anymore. It's not required anymore. So here's the thing behind it. Let's talk through this a little bit. So in 2020, when COVID happened and everything shut down and the world went crazy and chaos and all the things ensued, a lot of colleges realized they needed to change something in order to increase enrollment because of the pandemic. So what they did is they did a test optional admissions requirement saying that testing was optional. So ACT, SAT testing, it was an optional thing. You didn't have to do it to get accepted. However, I still advise students to do it during that time because here's the reality. One, it was brand new, something that the colleges have not done before. Two, even though they said they weren't looking at those scores, in all reality, a good chunk of those schools that were doing that still were looking at them. They might not have been required, but they still were looking at those results for admissions because colleges want to say, look at our average ACT score on our incoming freshman class. Look at all these things, like, because it makes them look good. Just like high school is like, look at our testing scores, look at our graduation requirements or our graduation rates, all those things. Colleges are no different. And so students were saying, oh, cool, I don't have to take the ACT test or I'm on the ACT test, whatever, it's fine. And they didn't submit stuff. They're like, why am I getting accepted? What's happening? That was why. However, there's been a big shift in it because they did realize that it is a benefit to students because a lot of students are not test takers. They might be really smart and have other really good things about them, but they're not good test takers. And students were killing themselves trying to take the ACT or SAT over and over and over again to get good scores. So in an article that Forbes came out with this year in 2023, they said that more than 80% of four-year colleges will not require standardized tests for fall of 2023. So starting this fall, for admissions and applications and things, 80% of four-year schools will not require testing. Now, again, does it hurt you to submit an ACT test or SAT test? Doesn't hurt you. In fact, through the article that I was reading, they did say that some colleges that truly do not want to see those test scores will just not look at them. If you submitted, they won't even be accepted. Doesn't mean your application will be accepted, your scores will not be accepted because they're not going to look at that information for admission decisions. So it can be a benefit if you're somebody who's not the best test taker. You've tried and tried and tried, but you can't get over a 19 on the ACT or a 17 or whatever it might be. And you're just like, oh, I'm so frustrated with this. So this is a really cool thing for a lot of students. I still, being the college background person that I am, I still recommend taking those tests. I wouldn't completely ignore them. And it's going to vary by state and by college, which one is more predominant in that area. For Ohio, most colleges has been ACT. I think it's starting to go to the opposite, which is kind of weird. But here's the thing. It's better safe than sorry. It doesn't hurt you to have the testing. And majority of the time, those colleges use that testing, if you don't have any college classes already, to determine what you place into with your math and English and reading and writing. So I don't know if they're still going to use those scores once you've been accepted to determine placement. So there still is benefit to taking those tests. It doesn't hurt anything, but you don't put much pressure on yourself. So parents, your students don't need to pressure themselves to get a 36 on the ACT because most of the schools are not going to accept it. Now, again, higher level schools might be different. They're trying to get into Harvard or Princeton or somewhere like that. They very well probably want to still see those scores. I can't say for sure, but there's a good chance. They'll tell you that in their admissions piece. So to answer the question, is testing required now? For most schools, I guess it's not, which is good and bad in some aspects. But again, it never hurts to have the test scores to do those things because they still could use it for placement testing to determine what classes you need to take. And sometimes they have their own testing, which is fine. But that way you're prepared if the circumstance arises.